high-end talent, and you're not going to get that with just rubbing a couple nickels together at 16 and 17. You want to be able to get those game breakers that are potentially up at the draft. So this is a nice reminder going into next year. Specifically, again, the team that we cover the most here, the Calgary Flames, they're probably going to have a couple of picks in the first round next year. And it will not be as simple as moving a couple of mid to late round picks to get up high into the draft. You can move up, but it is difficult to move into that high level area. Now, the Islanders don't get Hagens, but what they do get is actually pretty promising. Obviously, number one, sometimes the obvious move is obvious because it's the right one. And that was the case with Matthew Schaefer, a franchise defenseman, a cornerstone guy. Just seems like he checks every box that you would want if you are the Islanders or whoever. That feels like exactly what they wanted and exactly what they needed and exactly what they get. Coming out of that, though, they get Eklund and Aitchison. Both look like they could hit as well as just being competitive pieces on a roster in the not too distant future. And then to go out and get Prokhorov in the second round, that might up being a really strong ad for them as well. So it's not the game breaker that Hagens could have been, but you get potential franchise cornerstone in Schaefer and then a couple of depth-ish pieces in Eklund and Aitchison that will help kind of build out a foundation a little bit further on. So excellent stuff there for the Islanders, and a pretty good, I think, pivot coming off of what they wanted the draft to be and what it ends up actually becoming. Just a reminder, I love all the people in the chat. We got Toxic asking about the Calgary, or talking about the Calgary Flames. Toxic, I will say, I am going to talk about the Calgary Flames draft specifically here in just a couple of minutes. So we will get to that here in just a second. But we want more people in on the conversation. So share the video with your friends. And if you're listening in podcast form after, share the episode, and let's just spread the word of Couch Potato Diary as we are trying to build this thing here. A couple other draft picks that catch some attention early on. Denoye feels like a perfect fit for the Mammoth. I thought they would use this as a trade chip to go out and get a real NHL level difference maker, but they had a very good weekend leading up to it in being able to get JJ Peterka and help out with an NHL level player already and not have to give this pick up. So to be able to do that and then still add to a very good prospect pool makes this a home run win for the Mammoth for the weekend. And honestly, if we were doing winners and losers of draft weekend, they would be high up in the winner category. I think they did a phenomenal job here. And it fits them perfectly. Like Denoye, not only are you building out a very good roster, but it does feel like they are building a culture as well, and one that should be able to get them to a high level. Like, I am not saying that, okay, lock in the Mammoth for a championship, but it appears like they are building a championship culture out there with this group. So a huge credit to them for what they have done and what they have taken on in all of this, and just some very, very smart building. Denoye, it gives them size. Seems like he fits really well with kind of the forwards they have in the system already, and so it just seems like it is excellent move after excellent move after excellent move for the Mammoth. The Sharks continue to build the right way as they land Misa. A foundation is now set in San Jose. With Misa, Celebrini, you have Will Smith, William Eklund, a couple young pieces on the blue line, Askarov between the pipes. They draft the other goalie there at the back end of the first round as well. I don't think that it is now, okay, we're set, let's take off and go. Because quite frankly, everyone is going to be doing that this offseason. I think this is a good time to stay patient for the Sharks, have another year where you give the kids a chance, you see where everything falls, and if the ping pong balls go your way just a little bit differently this time, then it is another amazing piece in McKenna, and then you can go from there. But the draft next year seems pretty deep anyway, so one more bad year, and then it feels like the foundation is set, and it's go time for the San Jose Sharks. The Blackhawks stick and pick at 3, and that was one that I did not see coming. I really did think this pick would have been available. And we can discuss whether it should have been or not, but nothing really in the top 10 gets traded, so it's tough to figure out what the value would have been for this pick. But they end up getting Anton Frondel, who has shown real flashes of being like this high-level guy that you can kind of lock into, but there has also been quite a bit of boom or bust in the build-up for him. And so it felt like, with Hagen's there, obviously, at 3, that might have been a bit too high for him to go, but with the Islanders looking to make a move to get back into that spot and having a few more win-now type of pieces to play with, it felt like the Blackhawks could have been a good trade partner with them, because as we've talked about ad nauseum on this channel, this is a team that feels like it needs to really take a step here in the next little bit if they are going to have people keep their jobs and maximize what they have in Connor Bedard. And so I am a little surprised that those two couldn't really come together with some type of a move where you have the NHL ready of a lot of pieces on the Islanders and a player that is available for the Islanders that it seemed like they really coveted. So I was a little surprised that those two didn't really come together for any kind of a move. Like I said, we're going to have a ton more draft content coming up here on the podcast, Couch Potato Diary, wherever you get your podcasts. Also available here on YouTube. Just for right now, we are in a bit of a rush, so going to move along here with things today, as a lot of teams feel like they're coming away with a pretty strong draft. But for the second year in a row, one of the teams that everybody's talking about are the Calgary Flames. So, how did the Flames do in Draft Day 2025? Let's talk about it. Guys, this is a new spot for us, because this is 2 years in a row now where we're talking about how well the Calgary Flames did in terms of their draft. And that's not something look, there have been a lot of times where the Flames have had trouble getting the draft right 1 year in a row, let alone multiple years. I would have to go back and see, where is the stretch where it's man, killed it. But it seems like, again, the consensus is they killed it. Let's look up at the top. As Reschny, I just think he adds some dog down the middle for this team's prospect pool. We talked about him as a target on the podcast and in the draft preview. I talked about him again on Sportsnet 960. It was kind of our consensus that that was the way it should go, and that is the way that it went. If this hits, it is not the high-end prospect that I think people in Calgary so greatly desire. I don't think it is that. But I think that this is, if it hits in the way that it could, it is a potential high-end number 2 center for the organization. But even if it doesn't, even if it is the size is an issue or anything like that, I just feel like this kid, with the competitive spirit that he has, with the hockey IQ that he has, I think he is going to be able to find a way to be a productive winning player in the National Hockey League. And he is another one that it feels like he could have played, the version of him that we are expecting. He feels like he is the type of player that could fit in that Stanley Cup final that we just watched with Florida and Edmonton. His style feels like he fits into that. Even though he is a touch undersized, so Sam Bennett. Brad Marchand's not the biggest dude in the world. I'm not saying he can get to those levels. I am just saying the way he plays, the aggression that he plays with, and how smart he is, it feels like he is going to be able to find a role here. And so it does really feel like the floor is just solid middle 6 guy for a long time with them. And now they take another kind of a lottery ticket type of a move at 32 with Cullen Porter, not trusting my typing here all of a sudden, and not trusting the old memory. Colin Potter, that's right. I had Potter written down, and then I just didn't believe it. But this is the type of swing that I love seeing a team take at 32, and especially for the Flames, where it feels like you get, I don't want to call it safe, because that, I think that puts limitations on what you think Reschny could be, and also maybe overstates things a touch, but about as safe as you feel. Let's go with a high upside thing now here with Potter, and I think you get that. He probably isn't going to spend a whole lot of time as a professional down the middle, but he has everyone saying that he is the best skater in this draft, adding pace and skill to this forward group of the prospect pool. And it feels like, again, size may be a bit of a thing, but there is absolutely like high level talent in this kid. And so when you have those potentials where you have one trait that will just work, you know, like that there are guys who have just made it in the NHL based on they can skate really well, and they just kind of figure out where they go after that, but the pressure they can put on the defense gets them there. Potter, like the skating will be NHL level. It is right now. He like that trait fits in the National Hockey League tomorrow. So that works for them. And now if the other stuff where there is very high level potential, if any of those other things hit, now you have a real player on your hands. And so to Toxic's point, Flames prospect pool is good, just missing high-end talent like we've been missing for the past decade. Most of the prospects top out at second liner, top 4 defense, besides Perek. That is fair. I think Brustavich has a little bit more of an upside with that as well. But I think Potter, and I'm not saying like, forget the tank now, don't worry about McKenna, you got Cullen Potter. I am not saying that. But of all the players now in the prospect pool for the Flames that have a chance to break into that superstar level, that kind of difference-making level, it feels like he moves up toward the top of the list in at least having the potential to do that. I'm not saying he is going to, but it just feels like within his range of outcomes is that sort of a thing. And he, while the other ones do feel like there is a bit of a ceiling on him, I don't know what the ceiling is on this kid, but there's a lot to be excited about, I think, with him. A lot is changing, not just my facial hair, on Couch Potato Diary. Make sure you stay up to date on everything happening with the pod, with the YouTube videos, with the new pod, Living Room Lariat, on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, all of them. So follow me at Primetime Klein everywhere. The rest of the draft, everyone seems to be really high on. From Kyle Cushman, who we had on the radio on Friday, and just was absolutely awesome. I want to get him on the podcast here as quickly as I can. But from Cushman to kind of break down the rest of it, Stockselius is a big center who scored a lot in the Swedish Junior League. Phillips is one of the biggest players in the draft. Wittenbach won the Gaudreau Award as the USHL player who best embodies the legacy of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. This is a well-rounded class. And it feels like this is the second year in a row that we are saying this. And so it is, again, the point we bring up with the Flames is that if, and let's just say, when this organization gets that high-level player that they have been missing for a long time now, when that happens, they are ready to go. This will not be the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, you look at now the organizational depth that they have with 2 pretty solid drafts, that all of a sudden the depth of the prospect pool feels strong. And there are some very good, like, foundation pieces, but in a different way than in San Jose, where we talk about, okay, that, like, championship foundation could be set with that. This is more like building it like the house, where it's like, okay, this is what you're going to set it on. Now we put the mansion on top if you were to get a Gavin McKenna or something like that. Like, I think, like, if this team gets Gavin McKenna next year, they're a playoff team the year after. Like, I feel like they have set everything up where you have players at the NHL level like Azari, a Coronado, and those sorts of guys. I think Frost falls into that as well, with the high level that you have potentially on the back end with Perek and Brustavich, like we talked about, and then the sort of depth pieces that you can win with Reschny's. I think Stromgren has potential to be that sort of thing. Like, it feels like now the organization has been set up in a way that if you want to build on this, it's going to be pretty easy to be able to do that. And at some point here, very, very quickly, there's going to be a lot of upward pressure on guys who we viewed as high-level prospects anyway. And so I think that maybe a few of them don't pan out the way you want. That is how prospects work. But they are now in a spot, and I'm not saying they should do this now, but they are now in a spot where they can move 3 of these pieces and go out and make a big-time splash and get a bigger type of a player to build around it. Like, they have built such a great system, and it is 2 years in a row where you come out of this feeling like this team, when it comes to the draft, really does have both hands on the steering wheel in a way that we haven't felt about them for a really long time. So once again, the Calgary Flames come away from a draft feeling like they are one of the winners of the weekend. Let's move now to the world of combat sports, as the UFC had International Fight Week, and while this one didn't necessarily have maybe the super duper stars on it, it still had a couple of big time stars, and we got some major performances from UFC 317. Today, we're just going to be focusing on the main event with Ilia Topuria coming back out on top now at 155 pounds. Let's break down what happened in the main event at UFC 317. UFC 317 is now behind us, and as we kind of thought it might be, it ends up being a bit of a coronation for Ilia Topuria, as the former 145-pound king now reigns supreme at 155 pounds. It is a picture-perfect knockout of Charles Oliveira. Like, wondering what this guy's going to look like at 155 pounds, we wonder no longer with that knockout. And it really does, I think, perfectly show what this guy really can do. Where it was the perfect display of his full skill set. Where, okay, it was measured, it was patient, it was technically perfect, and it was vicious. It is just, okay, we're going to open it, let's do a quick shot to the body, maybe just get the hands down even just a little bit. Oh, hey, there's an opening there, let's do that, boom, and while we're doing that, let's come across, he's still reacting to this, let's come over with the ba-bam, and all of a sudden it's a knockout, and we have a new champion at 155 pounds. Like, it was like everything was moving in slow motion for him, and it was like every movement, every punch was to set up the next movement and the next punch. There was nothing wasted in any of that in Ilia Topuria. It was sniper-esque what he was able to do. Just brilliant. All the way around brilliant. It is the skill set that got him to this point, and it is that type of an approach combined with the skill set that has him now on the top of a second division and talking about him as a number one pound-for-pound fighter in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So a huge congratulations to him. He is the real deal. He feels like a superstar. He has the look. He has the skill set. He feels like he is a big deal, and I would like him to be treated as such by the company. In terms of Charles Oliveira, it's a long road back for him. It felt like this was kind of the last gasp of a title opportunity for him. He's still going to give us exciting fights, but in terms of relevancy, I just don't think he gets there anymore. And that is unfortunate for Oliveira because he is a incredible competitor, one of the greats at 155 pounds, but it feels like now the time has passed for him when you look at the fighters who he has beat compared to the fighters he has lost to over the last little while, and which ones are going to be hanging out at the top of the division and which ones aren't. Paddy Pimblett steps in for the title challenge, and this sums up the UFC perfectly. Dana saying after the event he didn't know that was going to happen and he didn't know who allowed it. So you have a big moment on a big night for the UFC, one of their tentpole events, but Dana is unaware of something big that is happening that is messing with the overall messaging of the company. It's another example of Dana not really knowing what's going on. We saw this a lot in the Jon Jones saga. Remember when we were guaranteed that those two were going to fight? And now remember how we're not going to see those two fight now? Cool. And then Dana not knowing about the tweets that are being sent out and all of that. Like, these are the attention to detail things that never happened when Dana was fully in control. And I'm not even fully blaming Dana for this. But, like, look at everything he's got going on right now. He has Slap, which I wish would just go away, but still, it's not, and he is running it. So he has that. He has whatever he is doing on the meta board and all his stuff with Donald Trump and everything like that too, which again, But he also has Zuffa Boxing, and they're promoting one of the biggest fights of the year in that sport with Canelo against Crawford. So no shit this guy doesn't have, again, made the reference earlier, but no kidding, he doesn't have both hands on the steering wheel, knowing where this thing is going. He's just kind of along for the ride, being the face of this company. And for a while, like, he has never been just the guy, right? He has been the guy to us and the forward-facing one, but there have been a lot more people kind of pulling a lot of the strings in the background. But now it feels like he has less control and less awareness of what is going on with this than ever before. Didn't even mention they have a TV contract that they are negotiating as well, trying to get literally billions of dollars into their company. So there's a lot that this guy is managing, and I just wonder if it is time now for there to be a new kind of face of the UFC. And that will be a change because he is the biggest star in the UFC and has been for a very long time. And that is how they wanted it. They I think they really learned from how like the Randy Couture situation went down and a few other things went down early in their time in the UFC, and recognized like these guys are going to come and go. This is a violent sport. We need to have something. We need to make the three letters UFC and eventually Dana White as the real actual star of this, instead of these guys who can come and go and then we don't have as many ebbs and flows. That this was a concentrated effort, but this was always going to be the concern, is that one day, that just the way Dana is, that eye is going to start wandering to new challenges and new things. And so I wonder if there needs to be now a new kind of face of the UFC. I don't think Paddy Pimblett should be the next title challenger for Ilia Topuria. It feels like he is still a fight away from getting that opportunity, but I think that this is also would be a bit of a star-making night for Topuria if he were to go out there and face Paddy Pimblett and continue to elevate a guy who could be the face of the Ultimate Fighting Championship for a bit. Just a reminder that you can support Couch Potato Diary and my cat's insatiable treat habit with a tip. There is a link in the description wherever you are consuming this, if it is YouTube, Daily Motion, or podcast. And for those on Twitch or Kick, there is a tip panel. Not required, certainly not expected, but would be greatly appreciated. The rest of the UFC story will be coming again from me a little bit later on here in other, if you're watching on video, other videos to come, podcast form, other podcasts to come. We're already pushing up against it here today, and I want to get at least a couple of wrestling thoughts in before we really wind down on this one. So let's dive now into the world of professional wrestling, as WWE Night of Champions brought us a couple of interesting results. Let's look mainly at the main event with John Cena and CM Punk turning the clock back, kinda, for their match. Let's break it all down. So, yes, a reminder, Living Room Lariats, the new wrestling brand from Couch Potato Diary, where still going to have wrestling breakdowns on the flagship Couch Potato Diary, but if you just want wrestling, Living Room Lariats is going to be the place to be, working on getting it in other platforms, but right now it is a Spotify exclusive. So, WWE Night of Champions. We may as well focus on the big championship belt at the end with CM Punk taking on John Cena. Firstly, I think you could make the undisputed belt an actual undisputed belt, but we will get into that later. That is a discussion, again, for another Living Room Lariat. Punk seemed genuinely surprised that the crowd was with him on this one. It felt like there was a lot during the build-up that might turn this crowd on him, but I think that for that crowd, Punk handled things very well and tried to do damage control as best as he could at the kind of kickoff event that they had out in Saudi on Friday. The John Cena sucks chants were loud, but they definitely faded as the entrance went on. This match didn't really hit the level of their past matches at all, but it was far better than I expected. This is easily the best match John Cena has had in this 2025 retirement tour. You play a bunch of the hits the way that you would expect them to, and you have some shenanigans toward the end, but even the part where you don't have the shenanigans, I thought this match was quite good. You get into all the craziness where Rollins comes out with Bronson Reed and with Braun Breaker and everything happening with those guys. They come out and attack CM Punk. Rollins looking for something, and then Charles Robinson comes sprinting down with another callback to WrestleMania 24, I believe it was. And instead of him sliding into the ring, John Cena hits the old alpha male Monty Brown pounce on that guy, and he goes flying away. And then it's where it gets a little convoluted, where Cena comes into the ring and Rollins says, "This has nothing to do with you." Which, look, I get, like, Rollins' whole big thing is that he wants he wants to be in complete control and everything like that, and so it is all bigger than wrestling. But you have the Money in the Bank briefcase in your hand. You called for a ref to come down to the ring. John Cena is the only champion in the building at that point. How does it not have anything to do with him? And so that I want to get behind Seth Rollins so much, but there is always all these times where it's this whole, it is bigger than me, it's bigger than wrestling and all of this stuff. And I get annoyed by it at times, but this one, it just seemed at another level where it's, oh, this is not about you. How is it not? It is literally almost entirely about him. He's the champion you would be cashing in on. Are you cashing in your Money in the Bank briefcase to make sure that Punk doesn't win the championship? Because that seems weird. I pinned him, and so the match is over. So I'm not the champion, but neither is he, and so mission accomplished. Obviously, that's not what's happening here. So that felt like a real, type of a moment that just added to a little bit of the craziness. And then you get the WrestleMania 40 type of a finish, right? Where you have Penta comes out and he takes care of one guy. Sammy comes out, takes care of another guy. And then it is just these two left. You have Cena hit the AA onto Bronson Reed as well. And so it's starting to feel like, hey, maybe babyface, whatever. You wipe it away with the look from John Cena again. I thought you were able to kind of turn that away. It did feel like, again, we are telling a bit of a story that some of the babyface tendencies are starting to creep back in with John Cena a little bit here. But you are able to erase it at the end with all of that. And then the finish, picking up the win over CM Punk. There are some parts of this that worked and there were some parts of it that didn't. And some parts of it where you can understand, again, the motivations, and some parts where you couldn't. As far as the match goes, Cena, he still gets to be a heel, and he is still the champion. Toxic in the chat saying Cena is washed as a wrestler, LOL. Yes. Yes, he is. This was the best match he has had, and it is, quite frankly, I think, the best that you thought you would be able to get out of him. So, kudos to them for being able to do that. But it is not pretty, and you're going to need a lot of these bells and whistles to get it done. I think a huge credit to Punk for being able to get that type of a match out of John Cena as well. But even that, it wasn't like it was this Matt classic. The reason it got to the levels that it kind of got to was it was just finisher after finisher after finisher after finisher after finisher. And we're kicking out of 5 different finishers that all these guys have. And it was kind of like the first match of the night. They did that with Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, and that feels like what this crowd kind of wanted. So you are able to get the most out of it. But yes, no, we are not going to look back on this retirement tour as some of the greatest work of John Cena's in-ring career. That is for certain, even by his standards. That is for certain. You do get Rollins able to cost CM Punk the title, so there is that, but that felt like almost a bit of an accident, the way that all played out. So I'm interested to see what the follow-up is for that coming up on Monday Night Raw. But overall, the Rollins thing where it's the whole "it's not about you," it turned me off in a way that it shouldn't, and I think it is just specifically because I'm not a fan of that performer and that character that it irked me. I am honestly, if I'm to put biases on the table, I'm probably looking for ways for that character to irk me, and then he gave it to me and I couldn't get unirked. But I do still think overall, you have a few stories you can tell coming out of this. It is an easy transition of Punk away from John Cena and into some kind of a Seth Rollins thing for SummerSlam and all of that. So I think that there is a lot that you can do coming out of it. It was just a couple of the details that I didn't necessarily love. Overall, this show was okay. Some of the matches were great. This crowd was strange. It was really quiet for stretches, and I don't know if there was just something going on that they felt they had to make the crowds quieter, or if there was a technical problem, or what was happening, but it was quiet during a lot of these stretches, and you would get big pops for big moves and stuff like that. But aside from that, this crowd was there to pop for a couple of entrances and then pop for some big moments, and that was it. When the heels were going, there was no booing, there was nothing negative. It was just silence for a lot of stretches, and it felt like it took away from a lot of the matches at this particular show. So there are some interesting stories that can come out of it, and we will get into those at a later time. So, that is going to do it for Couch Potato Diary today. Again, just a bit more surface level than I normally want to do with a lot of these things, but the time is what the time is. So, we will get to more in-depth breakdowns of a lot of these things as the next 24, 48 hours go on. So you can, again, always check out Sea of Dead, seaofdead403.ca. We got the awesome Calgary Cannons hat going on right here. Seaofdead403.ca for all of that. Get your gaming fuel at swiftenergy.gg/primetime. Use the code, primetimepk for the 25% off. Toxic, awesome having you back in the chat. Sorry it was a bit more of a rushed one today, but really do appreciate you popping in. Have a great rest of your day. Toxic was watching over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. Make sure if you're watching over there, you hit that follow button so you don't miss any of the live streams that we have. Also, kick.com/primetimepk. Couch Potato Diary is on YouTube at youtube.com/@couchpotatodiary. If you're watching on Daily Motion, make sure you hit subscribe or follow and like the video, share it with some people that you know. If you are listening, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. All that stuff helps out immensely. We will be back with another stream on Wednesday. We're taking tomorrow off, so live stream back on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.